Hi, thanks for joining me today. Today I'm talking about a book that I just finished, and the book is called The Dreyfus Affair by Piers Reed. Now, this author, he's written many books of fiction and some of nonfiction. One notable one is he wrote Alive, the story of Andes survivors. That was a movie about the plane wreck in the Andes. This is quite a different book. This is about the Dreyfus Affair. So for me, I study art. Through studying the Impressionists, you occasionally come across the name of Dreyfus and the Dreyfus Affair. So that is where I first heard of it. And then if you look at Zola, you hear about the Dreyfus Affair. And then if you read Proust, you hear about the Dreyfus Affair. So I had heard about this Dreyfus Affair, which was a very big newspaper story in its time. But I never really delved into it because I was interested in other things. I was interested in the artists. And so, but though I knew it was a very significant and polarizing event in the French history in the pretty much the last decade of the 1800s. So when I saw this book at the book sale, I was like, it's time to read this and figure out what this whole thing, this Dreyfus thing is about. So it is a very complicated story. Now, the basics of it is that an officer in the French army was accused of trying to pass secrets to a German officer in the German embassy. So this happened in Paris. That's the basic story. Now, to get to the book by Piers Reed, I'll give you the payoff right at the beginning. This is a great book. And the reason why is because he starts off and he sets up the atmosphere of what's going on. Because in order to understand the story, you've got to understand a little bit of history of Germany and their conflicts with France in the 1800s. You've got to understand the view of the Catholics. You've got to understand the view of the Jews. You've got to understand the view of the Jesuits. You've got to understand the view of the newspapers. You've got to understand the views of the public. You have to understand about the politics of the time, the politicians of the time. You have to understand about the army and how they were structured and the prejudice against Jews. You have to understand the National Assembly. You have to understand the court system. You have to understand the German government and what was going on with them. You got to understand all the individuals involved. So the one thing I really liked about this book is it's really well written. He tells you everything in a perfect order. He tells you at the perfect time, and he jumps around from all these different viewpoints and explains what's going on. It's pretty amazing the way he did this. When you consider all those institutions and individuals, and as you read it, it gets very, very complicated. I found a lot of material online about this, and I'm going to show some of the stuff as I talk about it. But one of the things was I found this kind of game that somebody had made, and they had all these different steps, of all the complicated things going on in here, because there were all these people in the army, and it turns out there was a real prejudice against Jews in the army, that they were not getting promoted. So when the army found out that these secrets were trying to be sold to the Germans, they immediately accused a Jew named Dreyfus of doing this. But it turns out it was their institutional anti-Semitism that's why they accused this Jewish Dreyfus. Dreyfus was considered guilty. He was degraded and humiliated in public. He was sent to Devil's Island. He had to live there, but then his brother knew he was innocent, and Dreyfus, of course, said he was always innocent. He was very firm in his innocence, and then his brother kept the case open, and all these things happened. There was cover-ups, and there was forged letters, and there were lying, and there was just so many different angles of this story. But the point is, the point I want to make is, again, really well told. This book goes at a gallop. You're just like riding this horse, and it just goes and goes and goes. And it's all these interesting things you see. You learn a lot about France. You learn a lot about all those things: politics, the army, the public, the press. It's a very enjoyable read, and it's very educational. And it does help me to learn more about the Impressionists, and it helps me to learn about Proust. So I really enjoy this book, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in those subjects. That's my basic review. I didn't want to get into the details. There's a lot of stuff online that you can find, and then there's also many videos online you can find. One thing I don't like is some of the videos is they have this cheesy way of doing illustrations of characters. I'd rather see the illustrations from the newspapers. And this book is just excellent. It's really classy job. This is a classy job. This is a very high quality job. And this author is just outstanding. So I recommend the book again. Hope to see you in another video. Thanks for watching.